my pleasure to introduce Dr. Oliver Scott Curry. He is a senior researcher and director of the Oxford Morals Project at the Institute of Cognitive and Evolutionary Anthropology. And he is, again, a very interdisciplinary scholar. We're really lucky to have him here speaking to us. Thank you, Oliver.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction, Athena, and for organising this fantastic conference. The microphone. Oh. Thanks again. My name's Oliver Scott Curry, and I'm interested in cooperation and morality, and I'm based in the anthropology department at Oxford. And really, the main point I want to make this morning is that there's many different types of cooperation, many different types of social behaviour, and so we should expect many different types of non-cooperation or antisocial behaviour. So there's not just cheating, there's different types of cheating in different games. So there's lots of different types of bad guys that we should be on the lookout for, hence the supervillain slide. So normally when we think about cooperation or the type of cooperation that's received the most attention, we're thinking about social exchange, reciprocity, reciprocal altruism, and the free rider problem. So everyone here is familiar with this notion that mutual cooperation, iterated cooperation, is jeopardized by free riders, by cheats, who take the benefit of cooperation but don't pay the cost. And this can be solved in a variety of ways. Most work's been on conditional cooperation, strategies that are sensitive to whether the other player reciprocates, whether the other player cooperates or not. So strategies like tit for tat have an inbuilt, they only work because they can detect when the other player cheats. Evolutionary psychologists have argued that because this is such a fundamental and ancient problem, we should expect humans to have been equipped with special purpose cheater detection mechanisms for identifying and avoiding cheats. And there's been evidence from the Wason selection task to show that people are indeed particularly adept at spotting cheats in social contract situations. So for those of you who are not familiar with the Wason selection task, this is a psychological measure that involves giving people a particular context and a rule like if a person goes to Boston, then they take the subway. And then the participant is presented with 4 cards or 4, which represent, in this case, 4 people who may or may not have broken this rule, may or may not constitute violations of this rule. And in the task, the cards have, in this example, a destination on one side and a mode of transport on the other. And the task is for you to identify which of these cards would you need to turn over to determine whether the rule has been broken, which of these cards you need to investigate. So who would turn over card number 1? Okay, card number 2, card number 3, card number 4. Okay, well, the right answer is and always is cards number 1 and 4, so misstep there in the middle. And most people, but don't feel too bad about it because most people get this wrong. So what we need to do is turn over the Boston card to see if they took something other than the subway, and we need to turn over the bus card to see whether this person went to Boston. If they did, that would be violating the rule. We don't care how the person went to New York, and we don't care. The rule doesn't stipulate that you can't go to New York on a subway either. So the middle 2 cards are irrelevant. So most people get this wrong. However, if you present it, if the rule has the structure of a social contract, there's costs and benefits transferred, people are much better. So here's another rule. If a person borrows the car, they must fill the tank with petrol. Well, I should have said gas, the Americans. So again, who turned over card number 1 to see if this, number 2, number 3, number 4. Okay, so yes, consistent with previous research, most people get this question right. So this has been interpreted as showing that people are adept and perhaps have evolved cognitive adaptations for spotting cheats in the context of reciprocal exchange. So far, so good. But exchange is not the only type of social problem, the only type of cooperation that humans are involved in. There's a range of different types of problems, a range of different types of social behaviours and their corresponding antisocial behaviours. So humans have evolved to be kin altruists, to take care of their kin, and evolve sympathy to be, it's been argued that sympathy is then available more generally to identify potential people in need and who would make good exchange partners down the line. Humans are mutualists, engage in collaborative collective action and coordinate to their mutual benefits. Humans have a range of resolving conflicts, one of which is to form stable social hierarchies in which resources are allocated by rank and which you expect the weaker to defer to the stronger. And humans face a range of hazards like disease and other toxins and infectious diseases. And so we expect people to look after themselves and be relatively clean and hygienic. So for each of these cases, there's a range of approximate mechanisms that promote these types of social behaviour, these types of cooperation. And in each case, we can anticipate that there's people who break these rules. There are, as we've seen, there are cheats who take the benefit without paying the cost. We should also be on the lookout for unsympathetic bastards who don't care about us and won't come to our aid, and to whom we shouldn't look to come to help us. There are disloyal deviants who fail to coordinate or fail to adopt the local norms and conventions, and thus are either in the outgroup or else, because they don't adopt our norms, it adds friction. We don't want to cooperate with them because it's more difficult to do so. There are disrespectful rebels who disrupt the status quo and don't submit to the relevant authorities. And there are dirty scumbags who either are diseased or don't have good personal hygiene and who present a risk to us in terms of infectious diseases and other hazards. So by the same logic, we might, given that these are ancient and recurrent problems, we might expect humans to be particularly good at spotting not just cheats, but also bastards, deviants, rebels, and scumbags. In order to test that, my collaborators and I came up with a range of rules, a range of scenarios, all of which were based on a fictitious, I shouldn't say range because they're called the Rangers, a range of rules set in a basketball team to see whether people were good at detecting violations of these different types of rules. Hockey, okay. Well, okay. From where? That makes me a master. Oh, okay. No, you might be a cooperator. That helps. So this hockey team, let's say, this hockey team had a variety of rules. If you play for the Rangers, you must pay the membership fee. If you see a teammate injured, then you must help them. If you play for the Rangers, if you're a member of the team, then you must wear the team colours. If the coach enters the court, then you must stand up and show respect. And if you have a dirty jersey, dirty kit, then you must wash it. In addition, we had a couple of, as is usual for this kind of research, we had a couple of control conditions. One was a descriptive rule, in which you were a reporter seeing whether indeed it was the case that this team wore a particular coloured jersey. And a social rule in which one of the coaches had stipulated a sort of arbitrary dress code that if you wear white shoes, you must wear white socks. So what did and we had 800 and something participants. So what did we find? Well, consistent with previous work, people were better at spotting cheats than they were at spotting people who violated social contract rules than they were at spotting people who violated the descriptive or general social rule, the deontic social rule. But what about these other problems, these other categories? Well, if anything, people were better at spotting bastards, deviants, rebels, and scumbags. All of the social conditions are significantly different to the two control conditions, and within the two, they're not different from one another. So, in my last minute, again, like I said, the main point is to say that there are many types of good behaviour, so we should expect there to be many types of bad behaviour, and taking a game theoretic adaptive approach allows us to map these out and predict what they might be. These preliminary results suggest that people are good at detecting bastards, rebels, deviants, and scumbags, as well as detecting cheats. And the overall point is life is not life is full of all these different kinds of problems and different games. Life's not just one big prisoner's dilemma, it's a whole mosaic of prisoner's dilemmas, coordination games, hawk-dove games, kinship networks, and all the rest. And by being alert to all these possibilities, we can arrive at a more comprehensive explanation of human social and antisocial behaviour. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have time for a few questions.
Okay, while it's making its way down here, I'm Brent Simpson from the University of South Carolina.
No, I just have one question here, right? You're sending it to me? Yeah. Okay, sorry. Okay, I just have one question about, my name is Magdalena Hurtado, I'm from ASU. In these games, have some group of investigators, researchers, taken on the problem that humans through the life history depend on others to negotiate, to learn, to apply all sorts of rules. It's a big complication, I would think, depending on age, sex, reproductive status, etc. So my question is, how do we accommodate for that?
Do you mean, are there individual differences in performance on these tasks? Do you mean, are some people...
I guess what I'm getting at is I struggle a lot in my research on thinking about individuals as being these free agents that are making decisions about how to behave, how to learn about rules, and how to apply them. I think that what happens in humans is that there's a lot of discussion about cultural rules, and it starts early on in their life history. And sometimes people will not make a decision, but consult with their kin or friends and so on. That's what I'm talking about.
So these results don't speak to exactly necessarily how the rules got there. So and there's some controversy over whether these are evolved, hardwired decision rules as opposed to acquired rules. So, and I think the answer is going to be a little bit of both. Is the answer.
Okay, still Brent Simpson from South Carolina. So the moral foundations theory that you build on, a big message of that is that conservatives and liberals care about these moral foundations differently. So I was wondering if you hypothesized and did you find any moderation by political orientation? Do conservatives, are they better at spotting scumbags, for instance? No, is the answer. So the participants also completed a short form MFQ, and there was no relationship between the foundations and the domains, the tasks. That's surprising from the moral foundations theory standpoint, I think, right?
It's surprising if you think that the MFQ is a good measure of morality. It's you could interpret it as a failure to externally validate that measure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe since the mic is here, why not? Hey, I'm still Daniel Balliet. Yeah, you're talking about maybe the value of identifying these different types of cheats, but then I guess your data suggest if there is an ability, a specialized ability for something like cheater detection, which Toby Cosmides folks are talking about, it is operating to the same degree, and maybe potentially there's one mechanism just underlying all of those enhanced kind of performances for those different types of cheats. And so then I'm wondering what the value is in terms of identifying these different types of cheats. Indeed, cheating can happen in a lot of different kind of contexts, in a lot of different rules. So is there another kind of, should we continue to kind of talk about the difference between bastards and cheats, or
I think we should because it's fun. But
I like to say it.
Yeah.
In the mic in front of so many people.
So one innovation of those rules, which I didn't emphasise, was that it's been shown that having a benefit, the antecedent clause of the rule, if it involves you need a benefit in order to trigger cheater detection, and if you have contract situations where you remove the benefit to the potential cheat, performance goes right down. Several of the rules I was talking about don't involve any
benefit. Having a dirty jersey is not a benefit. Seeing the coach is not a benefit. Seeing someone injured is not a benefit. And nevertheless, people are still good at spotting people who violate that rule. So these are just preliminary results of the sort of first wave of these studies, and we need to do a lot more. More funding is needed. We need to do a lot more follow-ups and look at it every which way. But I'm optimistic that this is picking. There's good reason for thinking that these might be different mechanisms, at least triggered by different social contexts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.